morning, everyone. Thank you so much for turning up here on a Saturday. I really appreciate it. And I always love coming back to Sri Lanka. This is my third time and I can't wait to come back again already. My name is Tanya George and I do a bunch of different things. There are some icons to represent me. Anyone wants to guess what they are? There's some drawing of dingbats over here, there's a typewriter, there's somebody walking and a map. So my bio feels like a mouthful always. I do type, I do design, I write about type, I research it, I do type walks, and I'm also a docent. What is a docent? We'll get into it. The simplest way I like to introduce myself is I like letters. These kinds also, but more of this. So I love letters, and everything I do revolves around my want to try and express that love for letters. And so here you have a lot of love. And what this talk is about is how I sort of am searching for a type and also researching and essentially trying to sort of find and tell stories about this love for type. And maybe you all can replicate this version, right? You know, it looks really groovy and I have a whole presentation that breaks it down simply, but it was not all smooth sailing all throughout. I start with a really vulnerable photo. This is the last page of a notebook of mine from when I was around 15 or 16. I zoom into it, so over there it's the full page, here I zoom into the sketches. And I focus on that one sketch over there, and I'll come back to that sketch, but essentially you can see a lot of lettering over here. So right from like school time, I knew I was into letters. This was something I really wanted to pursue. I eventually went and did an undergraduate course. I went to the same school that Sanskar did. It was really fun, challenging, interesting. And then I started working. And this might be a more difficult slide for me to share. This is really early work of my logos. You can see that, you know, I'm having fun. I'm trying to fit a lot of ideas into these designs. I really like visual puns, so you see a lot of that. These shapes sort of morphing into letters. I enjoyed that, and I still do, and I think I've figured out a way to do that better and faster, but I'm just showing you some early work to ground myself, and that everything snazzy that I showed towards the end of it is not how it started. It started a lot more grungy and a lot of effort went into it. And these are all very corporate clients. There's guidelines involved, so the colors are specified, the fonts are specified, and I still wanted to have fun within that, and I tried to figure that out. Something else I worked on is the most boring thing ever, called EDMs. I don't know if you all know this, electronic direct mailers. I mean, they were fun projects, but I tried to figure out some sort of lettering that I could include within these mailers as well. There was some sort of movement. There was an idea at the heart of it all, and then I was trying to figure out my voice and how to make it more fun while working within these corporate structures. And I realized maybe I don't want to work in corporate structures, so what I did eventually do is I went and did a master's in typeface design. The same thing that Pathum did. We were both classmates together. And so I had to be walking through a space and pointing at signs and telling people why this is interesting, why this is weird, what technological issues cause the letters to look like this. And I've been doing it since 2018, so by this time I realized that I don't want it to sound like my articles. Articles are for somebody who can sit down and read and have the time to take it really in. But here we are on the go, we're walking, we're on the road, we have to mind traffic that's there, people, roads are dug up. So everything has to be balanced, and I still have to get their attention. They have to pay attention to me, and it has to be interesting. And for me to have done almost 2 type works a month since 2018 means I need to think of the city as archives and make it interesting for people walking around it. And that's basically what these type walks are. They stemmed from all this research that I had that couldn't really fit into these articles, or they did, but I mean, I wanted to have live examples, and for these archives became an incredible sort of structure to think of it in that. So
where you have Art Deco buildings in Bombay, because Bombay is the largest collection of Art Deco buildings in the world. And you have a lot of lecturing on them that became part of the story that I want to tell. You have other kinds of stucco work, detailed work, but also these really fancy serif designs that are there on the bakery since back in the 1940s and 50s. So you sort of build in that storytelling as well. And so I can talk about serif design, song serif over here, or I can talk about the skill that went into designing these kinds of letters, because some of them are good, the materiality varies from place to place as well. So there are different stories to be told, and then place them locally as well. There's also multiple different languages that come into play, and that becomes really interesting. Over here you have an old sign for the same shop and the new sign as well. And you can tell by the worn outness of it how a shop comes to terms with all of this. This I had to share is one of my favorite signs in the city. It's a tailor shop that was there in the 1950s. Now, I stared at this for so long and I realized something. Do you see that E and A? They're flipped. So, if you see the men's E, that's the E it should be. But I imagine at some point they were taking it down to either paint it or dust it. And when it went back up, it got flipped, and you really have to look at it to realize that's what happened. But it's a really well designed piece of leather, with the exception of this one thing that really annoyed me. Because I thought the E and A was really charming, but why is there such a big gap next to the company? You know, that it almost looks left aligned in that sense. And if you see that letter K, that's also really weird. It's larger than all the other Hindi letters out there. And so there was no answer to be had until I entered the shop and I spoke to Uncle. And he told me that it was called SS Dias and Sons. And then they got rid of the Sons when one of the sons took over. So they held on to the SNNs. Thankfully, they still have it. So this is in their shop. They're opening and showing me the letter that they held on to. Here, there's a picture of what old SS Dias looked like from a newspaper clipping in the 90s. They have customized the S inside their dressing room, and they were really excited to talk about all of this. You can see both the sides, the old side and side by side. And it's really interesting to think about all these stories that are there within the shopping malls. You cannot get this by reading books or going to the library. You have to think of the city as an archive, and you have to, make these kinds of queries in ways that I would not have imagined when I was writing a thesis for my master's. There's also fun things happening across the board. So this says Ashirvad. The first letter is Devanagari and they merged it with Latin. It says blessings, but in Hindi, it's a Hindi word, but you also have the cross over there. So there's a mashup of a different sensibility happening. It's really fun, and it's on the back of the bus. Just like throwaway design, just on the back of the bus. It's not even for something very large. You also have different kinds of materials used. Neon is dying, and these are some of the few examples I have. This doesn't work. It doesn't light up at night. Thankfully, they still held on to it. I was still to see Colombo still has a fair bit of neon signage. It's still working. Very exciting. Please hold on to it. That kind of metal work casts a really nice shadow. So typox is something I think about what time of the day I'm going to do it in which locality, where the sun is falling, because I want the people to also have an Instagram moment. They're going to gram it. That's how people hear about my works as well. So how do they get the best picture on these works as well, while I'm telling them the story about the materiality of it. And then stuff like this, I posted this picture on Instagram, and someone who could read Chinese said that it says dynasty in English. That's dynasty in Devanagari as well, in a really brushstroke font. And that print in Chinese says government restaurant. And again, I would have never known this. Google Translate was not really helping. But this thing on the internet lived and added to the information that I could get about this. So my sources are wide and varied, and I make the most of it. Like I'm really, I bite into whatever is thrown my way. also have black letter Devanagari. What? I mean, it boggles my mind that if someone got something from Germany that is really traditional and they want to match this Indian script that has no connection to it whatsoever. And right next to it is really modern GE because it says golden electronics, that's supposed to be golden electronics. There's a really modern style and a really old style right next to each other. You have really fun things happening. This is Devanagari in really unusual ways. The matras are really bulbous on top. There's a verticality to it, and it really stands out. You also have designs like this where the matras are going into the negative space of the Shirolekha. So people are doing fun things. It's not like I am the first one, reinventing the wheel. I'm the coolest person on the block. People have been doing this for ages, and I'm just like gobsmacked that now that I'm looking around and seeing evidence of this. Because unlike the West, where everything is found in books and they've been referenced and catalogued, over here it's not there. At least in India, it's not there. I imagine there are parallels here in Sri Lanka as well, where all this is not documented. And it's really exciting to see this and to be able to point it to other people. Look, people have been doing cool things forever. Triangles with Devanagari, like, there's something happening. And there's something happening here in Telugu as well. These are photos from my last trip over here. There's some stencil type happening over there. There's some different designs that are happening, and of course, your station is, it's a landmark. It's not changed in the 10 years that I've visited. The sign is exactly the same. But I talked a little bit more about it on my typo on Sunday morning. If you've not signed up, come for it.
There's no space in it.
No spaces. Okay, then maybe Indica can do a second one very soon after. Yeah, and there's really good examples of trilingual typography here in the city as well. There are examples of it, and there is, again, these are historical examples. If you see more modern designs, I'm sure there's a lot left to love. And we talk a little bit more about it on our panel tomorrow with Patsum and Kosla about typography in the London space. And now I come to something that I've been working towards, and this has been really inspiring. Here you have multiple scripts on the same signboard. This is again English and Devanagari. And the treatment is, the painting that's done on top of it is something that sort of matches it. And it's a fairly common style. You have people trying these kinds of matchings across the board within the country, but particularly these examples are from Bombay. So you can see the thin and thick is they're trying to match it, and that really dark gray bit. It's not the best matching, but they've tried something. At least they made an effort. Here you have Shere Punjab, which is a really Indian restaurant that's matching as well. And I get really inspired by these designs and try and match when I'm designing for logos as well. So you have the Stampish movement, which is a meetup we had in Bombay. I know some of you all attended it when it was virtual during COVID, but now we have, it's been on a hiatus. I eventually started getting paid for jobs like this where I was matching logos across scripts. So there's something a lot more formal over here and a little bit more technical down there. But then I got projects that were a little bit more fun. This is Muska Bakery, where you can really see the drippings that are matching across the different strips. The sort of the bulbous headline that's there that gets matched across those strips as well. And this was a project that was really fun because this was a sweet shop that I really liked. But that was their Hindi logo on the side. And that was really sad. So I was like, what would this look like in Hindi? It was a self-started project that I worked on. And eventually the company reached out to me and asked if they could use that logo on their shop. So it now lives on their shop. I also have the joy of leading a type walk where I talk about my work at the shop itself. I talk about how I went about that design, which is a really fun experience. And it's sort of blending out into a font of its own that you've been seeing throughout this presentation. It's not fully formed, which is why there are some pictures here. But there's a Devanagari component to it as well, which is really fun. This is a beer label that I got to design. It was a limited edition beer label, and I wanted to focus the Marathi because it focused on the Maharashtrian farmers who were sort of building the millet that was growing the millet that was used for this beer. And so this was a screen printed design that focused on the Devanagari design. The Latin was sidelined. I had fun with the colors, but also the motifs. And it was a really fun idea that I got to work with the alcoholic brand who was happy enough to try on the Devanagari. I came across sign painters, and this becomes another sort of I'm carrying forward the idea of the city as an archive, because these are skilled workers who are dying. They're not getting jobs anymore because people want typically produced designs. So you really see the skill in their this is painter really. They're marking the line with chalk on the board. They do a rough sketch and then they discard it just as quickly because they have to fit a lot more text into a limited space. And on the fly, Vitavitek was doing this really skillful. And it's quite incredible to see the design take life. This is the final output. It's a bakery close to where I used to live. And this was all done in 2 days. Something that could be done overnight today on a computer, but this has happened a lot more. This takes more time, but the final output is far better. These are also sign makers. This is Navar Brothers. There are 3 generations of sign makers that are working in Bombay. And here you can see them sort of sketching again with chalk and paper. And this is a commission I gave them because I wanted to sign for my house. This is the number 6 that we done in Devanagari, and that's the marking that we use to sort of mount it onto the wall. And that's the final product in wood. And working with sign makers and all of this typos have become marketing materials in some ways. So one of the most amazing projects I got to work on is when this Art Deco Movement Trust reached out to me. They were restoring an Art Deco building. And what they did was they had these archival photographs of what the sign looked like back in the day. And I got to reinterpret what that would look like today. We had back and forth on colors and things like that. But I get to say that one of my letters is part of the Art Deco skyline that is there. Woo! The final section of my talk, I'm getting the button. Let us have fun. So, this is what goes into my brain sometimes. I have an idea and I'm like, no, Tanya, that's really dumb, that's really stupid, don't do that. That sounds like a lot of effort and pain, a lot of work. And then it sort of transforms into this. I mean, I can't help it because it's like this worm that I can't get rid of. And so it starts off with an idea like this. Now this looks like animation, but it is actually a font. You could type this out. When I graduated, there was something called variable fonts that came into play, which essentially meant you didn't need a regular or bold separately. You could have everything and sort of pick whether you wanted something in between regular or bold. But the traditional application of that to me were really boring. So I imagined that one instance of this is the regular and the other instance of which is bold, and then I made it animated with it. And this is a bit abstract. Let me show you a more sort of tangible application of this. So here instead of having regular bold, I had all the letters for curve, the sound for curve, mapped onto one font itself. And they're sort of being transported across the transliteration axis. Again, this is too cerebral. I was like, I want to make this a little bit more fun. So what I imagined was a typeface that works across 2 strips. I dived it back a little bit. I was like, 9 strips is a bit too much. So this is between English and Devanagari. And you can see the letter A. It says the same thing in Devanagari. So the way I pronounce A, I write it in Hindi, is how it works. And so that's A to Z over here. I also did this from 1 to 10 because I was doing this as part of 36 Days of Tech project. and it was a really fun exercise, but it was all digital, right? And then I had this really weird question. I'm like, how do I print something like this? I want this to be a print. And so then I go about exploring print options of something called the lenticular print, where both versions of them exist, but I fold the paper in such a manner that you get to see both those designs. And then I partnered with Sanskar for the boring party, boring party print, where you had the same letter on the same piece of print. So you see the letter A over here, and as you walk across the print, you see the A there. And that's how I'm translating something digital into something that's tactile, you can hold in your hand. And that was a really fun exercise for me to, Sanskar totally made that happen as well. Like, I had the space guide and he came and matched that place. So I go off on these tangents, fall into rabbit holes, and there's an Easter egg at the end of it. There is always a payoff. I quickly talk about, this is the last project I'll talk about, but this was a logo project that I got to work with these two women who were running an art walk in Bombay. I did the logo for them, and a couple of years later they come back to me and they're like, can you do a print for us? We want to commission you for a limited edition print. And because their name is Art and Wonderment, I use the word wonder. And that's the word wonder in three scripts, your WONDER, Adbudam in Malayalam, and Ashcharya in Hindi, which is the three languages that I speak, with varying levels of fluency. And I created this with this idea of the Calder mobile. I don't know if you're familiar with Calder. He's this American artist who did really funky things that balanced out completely. And so I was trying to figure out how that would work in terms of the physicality of it as a sculpture. And it was really poor and shabby and weak, but a lot of iterations later, we started looking something like this. And this artwork is something that ended up in an art gallery. It got sold as a sculpture, which is again something I would have never imagined when I was doing my master's in typeface design. I thought I'd be designing fonts for the rest of my life, but here I am in an art gallery selling an art piece based on letter forms. And I'll talk a little bit more about it later when you come find me, because we need to wrap this up. But this is an extension of the same artwork. And the very final thing that I talk about is something super bizarre. I love pretzels. It's weird, whatever, deal with it. And I stared at pretzels so much that I always thought it looked like the Marathi letter. You see that infinity loop in this, right? And I was like, what if I mash up this love for, it's also the Tamil letter that does the same sound, if that helps. So that might be helpful. I wanted to merge this love for pretzels and my letter forms, and it became this piece of design. It's a pretzel shaped in the heart shape, but also the letter L, and it's something that I hand off to a lot of different friends, and they go and put it everywhere across the world and send me pictures, and I do it too whenever I travel. And stickers have become a really fun way to express this in tangible ways. So you print your stickers, you have all these different pieces. I also get WhatsApps and DMs from people who look at type and think of me and are like, we thought of you when we saw type, and that to me is super cool. When people look at letters and think of me, I'm like, okay, I made it. This is all I ever wanted. And I view my attention as a form of caring. And my win is that I've got people to care about letter forms through typos, through what I wrote, and get excited about letter forms in ways that they think of letters when they think of me. And to me, that's a pretty special win, especially when I think of the fact that I love letters. I transfer that love for letters to everybody else. And it's evolved over a period of time, so that love kind of looks like this now. And I hope that evolution continues, because that's me when I was 15. This is that sketch I showed right at the beginning. That sketch kind of looked like like this somewhere in between. So that's TANYA. I figured out I could stack my letters vertically on top of each other. And now that I have a brand called Tanya Types, I put the types inside the Tanya. So I have that. And the current version of it is this. And I don't know where this will go next, but hopefully somewhere fun. I will do things that I'd never imagined. And if you have questions about any of this, come find me either here or on the internet. And I promised you all something at the beginning of this talk, and I wasn't lying. Come find me if you want any of these stickers. Woo!